Hello and welcome to the MAKEthrough.studio podcast. My name is Daniel Champion and I'm your host on today's show, and what we like to do here is invite different kinds of artists on to talk about different types of inspiration. You can collaborate with all of these different artists via the MAKEthrough app. But what the hell is the MAKEthrough app? Well, let me tell you. A MAKEthrough is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination. A MAKEthrough is a collection of respectful opinions and discussion. A MAKEthrough is the power of collaborative problem solving and support. And a MAKEthrough is a mobile app, as I've mentioned, but it's not quite ready yet. As I'm recording right now, as I'm speaking, it's not quite ready. If you're listening back to this at some point in the future, maybe it is ready. Well, hopefully it will be. It definitely is ready if you're in the future. So just go ahead and download it now. Like, why wouldn't you, You'd go download the app, build yourself a profile, build yourself a project, go ahead and find your tribe and just figure out a way to design your life the way you've always wanted it. You'll find street performers, science communicators, motorheads, writers, potters, glass blowers, fabricators, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, game designers, concept artists, musicians. We've got a musician today, which is great. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, in the meantime, you can go to MAKEthrough.studio, click on contact. You can sign up to be an early adopter of our app, and then we'll send you a nice little invitation when it is ready. If you're one of these people that's not in the future, you're in the same time as me, then we can send you an invitation to join the app and come and be a part of this community that we're trying to build. In today's episode, we have Cali Rivlin, musician, composer, vocal coach. She's a force of nature. You wait till you get a load of this beautiful artist. She's a menace. And she's a pure inspiration. What a great pleasure it was to have her on the show. So without further ado, let's get into it. Cali Rivlin, take it away. It's so lovely to have you on the podcast with me, joining me today. I've got a very special guest. I'm very excited. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess we'll see. So for me and for the audience, please just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Okay. Hi. My name is Cali Rivlin. I am a musician. I'm a piano composer and singer. Been doing this my whole life. I've been studying, music, and started with opera when I was very young. And then I went to, the classical route. But I always knew that wasn't going to be my thing. Like, I always knew that there's lots of other music that I really love. So I kind of grew up on lots of things like jazz and grunge and a lot of rock and some alternative music, some R&B. So soul, it's been very, very diverse, and I love that. So music has been a great, great part of my life. And I was born and raised in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And I've moved to the UK. I've been kind of living in and out of the UK for the past decade or more even. And, that's kind of what I do. I do a lot of piano compositions for my original material, and I also sing a lot of jazz and soul. And that's the basic introduction.
That's incredible. So you're a professional musician. That's how you make your living. And is that, It sounds like that was probably always the dream job, the ultimate goal, would you say? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I never thought I'm going to do anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's accurate. I can just see it's all over you. So would you say that the dream job is already happening now?
In a way, but it is really hard. Like, it's a tricky business, obviously, because it's called show business, but really it is a business, and you have to kind of understand that. And I think it takes time, because artists, you got the vision, you have the artistry and sort of the magical creation, which is your art. But then the other side to that, the other aspect of it is that it is a business, and you have to be a bit business savvy, and most artists are not. And myself included, like, it's not a side that comes naturally to me. There are some people who are very business oriented. And I would say that I love having this particular thing as a push, as a drive to, like, I decided I'm not going to have any other job. This is my thing. I mean, I teach vocals, but other than that, really, that's, I just do gigs and perform, and somehow people magically kind of fund some of my recordings, and just magical things happen. Yes, when you're a musician. But money is always an issue that you have to consider, and
Sure.
Taste of the audience and things like that.
And how do you reconcile that? Just quickly, I mean, transitioning from being a creative person, a musician, into being a professional musician stroke business person, does the sort of creativity, does the music lose some of its allure as you move into that sort of professional realm? And is there an answer to how to manage that effectively at all?
Well, I think that's a really good question. How do I manage that with difficulty? It is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because as a musician, what you want to be doing is you want to be at that upper strata, that echelon of like just creation.
Sure.
And make that unencumbered by anything, which is why also in that list that I sent you, I imagine we'll get into that in a minute, but the first thing that I mentioned on there is artistic integrity, because that tends to be, you know, the first thing that goes out the window for a lot of people, because they're like, well, I have to make rent, I have to get some likes and some attention and some subscribers, and that's not a new thing. People act like that's a new thing. It's not. It's been around since, you know, the fucking dawn of time or whatever, because there's always been something, whatever's popular and relevant, and then what's in your heart and what you want to say, and that's how new music and new styles come about. Otherwise we would never have anything new since forever. We would just have the same music. So I think it is difficult to manage it, to be honest, but you do have to find a balance and keep it like, what helps me is to listen to other people, whether it's like other people's music or podcasts or whatever that I really relate to and that I love intensely, and I have to kind of weigh up, does this speak volumes to me? In volumes, like, do I relate to this? Is this what I'm doing? Can I measure up to that, you know, in my own eyes, in my own standard, not through anyone else's, but for me? Do I feel like I'm doing what I need to be doing and am real to myself? And I feel that I am, and I definitely won't do a lot of things that over the years may have been a shortcut in the music biz that I have refused to do. Very fiercely refused.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, thank you for introducing the whole point, the reason why we're here. What we like to do on the podcast is invite beautiful, creative artists, thinkers, makers, philosophers on to talk about what inspires them in the shape of 5 moments, items, a list of 5 things that have inspired these beautiful artists in their life, or perhaps a list of things that are burning brightly now and resulting in inspiration. You've touched on a big chunk of the first point there. I've got here point number 1 on the list: artistic integrity and authentic people. I think you've sort of opened the box on that artistic integrity side of things, and just talk me through how authenticity fits into that, particularly with some of your collaborators.
Yeah, well, authentic communication is the biggest thing in the world for me. And so I get this kind of remark a lot when people see me on stage, especially doing live performances, where, you know, just I want it to be real. I want people to feel like it's a real thing. I don't want them to feel like this show has already happened in my mind 1 billion times and now they're just getting ready to see another thing that I've done 1 million times. No, you got to keep it in the moment, and also in terms of like what I like to sing. I definitely know that I love singing what I am singing. I'm not just doing it for the, you know, for the hell of it. I sing material that I really enjoy, whether I'm doing my own music or other people's music, whatever it is. It's something that I enjoy very much and that I have to connect with really and want to express that. So, but authentic really is anything, even if you watch ads or like, you know, trailers, whatever it is. If you watch people doing speeches, you know, I'm allergic to, it's one of my greatest pet peeves is people who give a speech and they're like, you know, and now we would like to welcome the lovely man that is blah, blah, blah. And you know, you know the cadence already, you know the speech pattern, like, you know that whatever's coming, it's like that person zoned out and we zoned out too. Like you're not having a conversation anymore. This is a different communication altogether. And so when I'm on stage, one of the remarks I get the most is like, oh, wow, you're so real on stage, because I keep it as like, if you have a conversation with me now or the me that's on stage, you're not getting 2 different people. Like I keep it real and very casual and all the rest of it. I'm not formal, you know. I do my art and it's part of the communication. It all goes in one wavelength. And with artistic integrity, what that means is that you're not going to do something just for the hell of it or just because it's popular, just for attention, just for money. Like everything you do really sort of vibrates. Like everything you do has a specific point of importance and significance to you, and you know why you're doing it. And I am inspired tremendously by people that I can see that that's what they're doing. Like if I look at artists like Tori Amos, Chris Cornell, Jeff Buckley, Alanis Morissette, you know, these are some of my favorites. I think what makes them great and what makes them, you know, what separates them out is the fact that they're so incredible or so wildly exceptional in how they articulate themselves and how brave they are in saying something new, working out a particular vocal phrasing or a chord or a way to play something, or a style of music, lyrics that are very like, whoa, what did she just, like that kind of thing. Tori Amos very famously had every record producer in whatever, what was it, RCA or Columbia or some shit, like just tell her, she's a piano composer and a very famous piano composer and singer-songwriter. Her main deal is piano. This is crucial to the story because when she brought in some of her material, one of the producers from the thing said, why don't we just replace all the piano parts with guitar parts? Why don't you just, this is pointless to record an album like that. And so because it's a big company, she could have just said, yeah, okay, whatever, like I'll get my music out there. But she went, absolutely not. You may not touch my music. This is my jam. This is my heart and soul here. So for those reasons, I have not gone on to do things that may have been a shortcut. For example, like singing shows and, American Idol or, The Voice or Britain's Got Talent or any of those things. I've been offered a lot. They used to hound me, those people from these shows, because they get tips on, from venue owners and stuff like that on different artists and stuff. And they'll call you and they say, oh, we can get you a specialized audition where you don't have to like queue up. You just come do a thing. And I was like, no, thanks, and they'll tell you, oh, it's good for you. It's good for your exposure. And I'll be like, I don't think that it's good for my exposure. It's good for you. You'll make ratings off of it. I can't see how I'm going to. And there have been people, look, historically who've benefited from these shows for sure. But I think as a whole, as a collective, on the macro level, it brings down music level considerably. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a couple of things you said there. The one at the top about authenticity, and I'm sort of guilty of it myself in this conversation. I have a certain guard up. We're having a conversation, but I'm aware that there's an audience as well. And it's a public conversation that we're having, and I'm aware of that. And there's work that I need to do probably in moments like this where I could be more present and should be more present, and perhaps that would result in a feeling of more natural, organic authenticity. So that's a beautiful point for me. That's a beautiful edit for me, which I'll take on in whatever I do.
Oh, that's lovely. See, worth the ticket price alone.
Right,
already.
exactly. Exactly. And then just the other thing that you're saying about the integrity side of things and how it sounds like there's an incredibly fine line, a razor's edge there that you're walking with doing business as a musician, but not selling out. And in marketing, we would call that protecting the brand,
Yeah. Yeah. Because like, let's say if Metallica now wanted to sell you, I don't know, like beach vacations in Maui, like what? You wouldn't get Metallica to do that. You know what I mean? Like that would impact their brand horrifically. You would get Metallica to partner up with the heaviest guitar distortion amp, sounds in the world. You would do that. So you do have to do something that sits well with you and your brand. I do understand that. I agree with that. I'm also aware, I'm not like some naive, 10-year-old who's like, why can't we all just color in rainbows? Like I get that this is a business and marketing makes sense for a reason. Marketing works also. It's not just like some hoo-ha, like PR. It's important, and there are things in it that work. What I am saying is you can get away with a lot, even when you like shamelessly plug something in, by doing it in a way that makes sense to you and that has a bit of humor or some sensibility to it. Like, do you know Richard Iwadi?
No, actually.
Oh my God, he's hilarious. He's a very funny English comedian. He was on the IT Crowd.
Okay. Oh no! Yes, I do.
He's got glasses.
Yeah, I apologize. I know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got him.
Big hair. Yeah. So he's a hilarious man. And he's so offbeat. He's such a, like, I think he would, lovingly agree. He's a weirdo. He's such an offbeat, like, what? With his sense of humor and everything. And he once went on the Graham Norton show and he introduced this, like, book that he's written about himself. And it's an interview. It's very humorous and very self-effacing, but it's like an interview that he did with himself. He read out a piece of it, but the way that he did it, because he's so uncomfortable with marketing, he just takes that, runs with that gag, and he takes a piss out of himself. He's like, I'm terrible. I'm the worst man in the world to be in this position right now. I'm like trying to market myself, and then he read a bit of it, and it's just, it's a killer. But because he's very true to that, he's not coming out there and trying to do the American like speech or the American sales pitch of like, call 555, get booked. He's not doing any of that. So it makes sense.
Sure.
And that's what I mean. You have to just keep it real for what's real for you.
Yeah.
You can't just take someone else's thing and be like, I'm going to blah blah blah.
Cool, I got you. Okay, well, that I feel like we've explored that. That feels like a nice place to conclude point number one: artistic integrity and authenticity in people. And it sounds like the authenticity that you were fighting for in that point was for the audience as well, which seemed interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Because I think they're worthy of very high quality things, and if you make high quality things, and if you grant your audience that benefit of the doubt that they are intelligent and worthy of something amazing, then you will end up with something amazing, and you'll have a very inspiring conversation.
So tell the truth.
An interaction. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right then. Is there anything you'd like to conclude on that point? Artistic integrity and authentic people?
Just that for me, there's no point really to live life if you don't have those things. Like if you don't have your integrity, certainly your artistic integrity to what you do, and you're not authentic in your communication, then we're all having conversations that are like, there's no passion. Do you know what I mean? And so I think authenticity is that passion and makes life worth living.
For sure.
That's my conclusion.
Okay.
Drop the mic.
All right, I got you. So point number 2, let's have a look. Let's move on to the second point on the list. I've got here the second thing that you've got on a list of 5 that inspires you: the sound of a grand piano and vocals. Now, is that 2 things? Is that 2 things together? Talk me through that.
Well, I suppose it is kind of 2 things and 2 things together. When I do a show or when I sing, but both of these things are very inspiring for me. I love singing and I love playing piano. When I hear the sound of a truly great, fantastic grand piano, it just moves something in me that I can't explain. I just kind of go, oh, like it's just so good, especially if you get a really good one like Bosendorfer or like Steinway and Sons or Yamaha, like really good grand pianos. It does something special for you. It feels really real. It feels earthy. I don't know, like it does something very real to me, and it's a very special feeling that I just get connected with it, and the sound just kind of takes over. That's a very hippy dippy feeling that I can't really describe.
No, but it makes sense. Yeah, whatever that language is, however you articulate that, I think it is just in the description of what something feels like. I've had a similar feeling. It's probably not on the level of you. It's probably not how you hear it or how it makes you feel when that thing happens, but I understand entirely how instantly that probably roots you in the earth and just resets you in the moment and makes you pay attention.
It does, and whether I'm like performing somewhere or sound checking or whatever, or if I'm by myself in a room with the piano, it's just such a unique feeling, especially when you get a great one, and or when you do a show and you're sound checking and then you get this great reverb and great sound stuff, and you're singing and you're playing and everything just fits and it sounds just right. It's a beautiful, pure feeling and a pure moment of magic that I feel like I can't really elaborate so much on, just because the isness of it is just so pure and magical that there's nothing I can say other than to be like, it's amazing for all the reasons why it is amazing.
For sure.
Just lots of superlatives.
No, I get it. But does it have to be you playing it? Do you get the same feeling if you're in the room and someone else?
No.
Right.
It's great even when other people, absolutely, like when people play or sing, but particularly like grand pianos and great voices and stuff. I just find that flooring. I'm floored by it. I'm just like, oh my god, I can't. Especially if it's someone really good that I feel like they're really very unique and really inspiring or introspective, or something about their art is very unique and grabbing, and they're really, again, back to like the authenticity. I feel like it's really them that they're communicating. I find that incredibly compelling, and I have to watch. I have to kind of, amazing.
And then pairing it with a vocal. So is there a perfect version of that? Is there a particular way to group those 2 things? Is it a male voice? Is it a female voice? Does it matter? Is it a genre? Is it a particular collection of lyrics? Does it matter?
I don't know. I suppose it's a good question. I don't know if it matters. Certainly it doesn't matter if it's male or female, or the genre maybe a little bit, because there's genres that I prefer, certainly on piano, and if it's a grand piano, I prefer for things to be a bit more on the Tori Amos side or the Kate Bush side, which is a bit more sort of, the music has more of a storytelling, a bit more complexity, a bit more like character and specifics to it, and not necessarily just 3 chords and like I love you, like those songs definitely have their place, and I don't mean that in any sort of invalidating way. They really do, and some of them are like a favorite song of mine, like they're fabulous. But my favorites that tend to be my happy moments are like, let's say Tori Amos has a solo in Cornflake Girl, who's one of her famous biggest songs. And I think that when she plays it on a Bosendorfer, which is the best piano in the world, like hands down, unequivocally, and that moment is pure, unadulterated magic, unicorns coming out of the, like, it's just so inspiring and phenomenal. You just, hands down, you can't beat it for me. And so I find that more, I sometimes, it sounds a bit funny to say, but sometimes when I see really fancy pianos with really fancy setups and I see people just playing like whatever, those same 3 chords on it, I kind of go, oh, well, that's wasteful. Like you didn't really need all that for it, like the whole, because I know the whole shebang that is involved in like bringing that kind of thing into the studio, tuning it up, miking it up, blah blah blah, all the thing. And I'm like, you could have used whatever keyboard is in the back for these particular dum dum dum, just whatever that you're doing. So I think for me, the more sort of expressive and like poof, and you use the whole scale of the piano, the really like the really low ones that have all these beautiful, exciting overtones, along with the like the things that are on top and ring out. That's like exciting because the piano has its personality.
Incredible. Something that came up on a previous episode was, I'm not musical myself. Well, that's not true, actually. I'm not a musician. I can't read music. I can't play. But am I a musician? I'm not sure. I think the jury's out. We'll come back to that probably. But what I was curious about here was, on a previous episode, it came up, certain musicians are so inside the moment of playing something. It owns them so entirely and in such a rich and sort of animalistic, organic way. The instrument is kind of playing the person a little bit to a certain point where the artist gets lost and it's not an equation. They're not reciting the lines they learn. It's just, it comes back to your authenticity point again. It's just the truth of what they're expressing is happening now. And it sounds like
it's happening now.
Yeah. And it sounds like you specifically can hear that the exact moment it's happening on a grand piano. Do you think other people know instinctively, viscerally?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Instantly. An audience knows. And, the greatest disservice you could do to your audience, whether that's like, by the way, online audience of videos or whether it's someone watching you live, the greatest disservice you can do for them is to assume that they don't know anything and to like act as if they're idiots, because they're not. People have been dumbed down by some of the content that's thrown their way, but that's just like somewhat deliberately meant to push the bar down, because when you're aiming for the lowest common denominator, that's what you're going to get, but when you want to like sort of raise people up in terms of like inspiration or music or whatever it is, or spirituality, which is something that is important to me, I kind of go, okay, well, I want to lift people up, not necessarily with a particular style of music, not necessarily genre wise. I'm not saying like, oh, party music or, oh, really depressing music or anything. Just with any performance I do, any genre, whatever, you want to sort of lift people out of whatever it is that they're in. And you have to keep that show fresh. You have to keep it in like a new unit of time. You're not just doing it like, oh, I've done it, I know the show, I'm just running through my lines here, blah, blah, blah. You need to make sure that you're in that moment. And also, when something goes a bit awry and like the audience, and you start winging with it or improvising or whatever, or creating something that's totally new, that's never happened before, the audience knows that they know instantly what's happening. I've done a show the other night, like I did a show a couple days ago, which, me and my pianist, when I said like, we haven't done this song ever and we don't know 100% how it's going to go, but let's go for it. We're just doing it. And then the audience responds to that. They know that something new is happening. Or when I talk to them and I kind of go, okay, well, shall we do a little solo? You do a solo, They know that it's happening now, and this is not something that's happened a billion times before.
For sure. And you mentioned something there as well. Lift people out of whatever they're feeling or thinking. I can't remember exactly how you finished that sentence, but lift people out of wherever they are, I think, which is so true of so much art. That's our responsibility, I think, right? As creative people, you've got to stop.
100%.
Yeah. Stop people in their tracks, invite them to think in a different way for a few seconds, maybe longer, hopefully. Yeah. And as a result of that, long term, perhaps even change them, add a new perspective to what they already knew previously or prior to seeing your performance, which is so beautiful.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. So before we move on in that case, is there anything you'd like to conclude about the sound of a grand piano and vocals and how those two things inspire you?
Just maybe, like I guess that second point can be concluded as, music, or what music is for me. For me, the most prominent things about music is grand piano and vocals, because that's mostly what I deal with. But music is the highest form of communication in my eyes, because you could have a very long conversation with someone, or art is really, but you could have a long conversation with someone for about 3 hours and get into all the nuances and minutiae of different things. Or you could play them a song, or play them 3 chords, and then they're like, wow, like it opens up a different thing that kind of bypasses a lot of the analytical crap and just like shoots straight for the heart. Do you know what I mean? Like it just kind of goes woof, and then you end up with the person right there, and then they get you, and you're like, oh, cool, and it's something completely different that we all have as an advantage, as a language, another separate language to communicate to one another. And I think that's why I find it so inspiring from me and for other people, like as an audience member and as a performer.
You're speaking my language now, and I'm loving it. Okay. All right, cool. So incredible. Let's have a look at point 3. I am just going to cut in here and let you guys know that if you were to have a business or a service, if there's something out there that you think would be useful and inspiring to artists across the world, a business, a service, a product, you can advertise here as part of the show. This is where we would have our sponsored segment. So hopefully we have some sponsors and some advertising in the future, some tasteful sponsors and advertising in the future. If that's you, let us know. You can go to MAKEthrough.studio, click on contact, leave your details, leave us a little message. We'll come back to you and we'll figure it out. But for now, back to the show. Point 3 on your list I've got here: films with a strong, inspiring message. Okay, so what is that? What's a good example of that, and what do you do with that? What does that mean to you?
Cloud Atlas would be my number one example for that. Yeah, I love Cloud Atlas.
Okay.
What a movie. Because it's way less famous than The Matrix. Like Cloud Atlas, I'll just tell audiences, whoever doesn't know, is the movie made by the Wachowskis, who made The Matrix and a lot of other movies. I think something about the visual format of when you marry the visual with the audio, there's something very special about that. And I grew up on a lot of soundtracks, and I aim to do film scoring. A lot of my composition is very cinematic and very sort of takes you on a journey, and I find that just incredibly evoking and like evocative of different scenarios, pictures, stories. It's super inspirational and spiritual for me. And so when I watch a great film, and the films that have been huge for me as a kid, like for very different reasons, very different styles, but like so Cloud Atlas is kind of an epic, like, wow, thing. Then you have things like The Matrix. You've got stuff like, Inception, which was incredible. Inception was such a groundbreaking film for many different reasons, but the concept, the acting, the style, the genre, the original point of view, the original thought, this wasn't like some reboot. This was a very original film, from its inception. Excuse the pun. And the music was, Hans Zimmer with Johnny Marr, and it was just like very, very special. So when you watch something like that, I think it's mind-blowing. And I grew up on a lot of film scoring. The first one that I really loved was The Piano, which was a film from I think it was made early, maybe late 90s or early 90s, and with Holly Hunter and Anna Paquin, Harvey Keitel, and the music was made by Michael Nyman, who's a piano composer, and it's just pure perfection. It made me fall in love with pianos even more, So when you have that kind of inspiring visuals and a story with the music, and they just collide in the most beautiful way together, it's another aspect of communication, another aspect of something beautiful.
A couple of things that you've highlighted there are narrative and storytelling. I mean, I think that was perhaps the first art form, when as soon as people started gathering around the fire, we were telling stories. People were performing and describing narrative to their audience and presenting that through music as a language, and grouping all of that, the emotional narrative plus an emotional score, is just worth its weight, isn't it? It's priceless. It's so powerful.
It's why we're here. We love storytelling.
Right, exactly. I think storytelling is at the heart of the majority of certainly the art that I love. And you also touched on a couple of movies there as well. Cloud Atlas, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but what I remember is a handful of brilliant actors playing very different characters across different, I don't know if the timelines ever connect, but it's certainly
lifetimes.
Different lifetimes, okay.
Yeah.
And some of those performances, I think particularly Hugh Grant is playing, he does a fine job in that movie. There's one role that he plays, he's insanely good. And there's one role, I think he's like I say, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but he's kind of like this tribal...
he's a cannibal
kind
of guy, and you can barely recognize him. You go, what? The makeup work alone in this movie was worth an Oscar. Like, just the fact that they've managed to get away with that. There's when you watch the credit scenes and all the actors and they round up what every actor did, you go, what? That was Susan Sarandon?
Yeah.
What? That was Hugh Grant? What? That was, you don't even recognize who these motherfuckers are. You just have no idea. And you go, what? That's just like an added bonus, an added value. But the thing that I loved about it is because for me, different past lives and things like that are very real to me. Like, that's just a concept that I think makes absolute sense. When you have a person who you see where their starting point is and they really go and take you out on a journey, and the way it's edited as well in terms of the story on the timeline is a bit difficult to say, but the way that it's edited is pretty amazing. And the way that the story is told, you have one person, one like spirit, let's say a spiritual being, and you see their journey, their arc across different lifetimes and different, space opera kind of age, and the tribal kind of age, and it takes you back to whatever 1800s, and then like more modern times, like then 70s. But it's still, the story is of that character and how they are doing in life and how they're interacting with other people. And the message there was so intense. It's like, what is it? Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others. And with each crime and each kindness, we birth our own future. That's like a direct quote from the movie. And I think nothing can be more incredible than that. It's definitely true in this sort of day and age where everything is like sort of expendable, dispensable. It doesn't mean anything. Like, people try to strip away significance, and like by doing something really kind or doing something really stupid, you birth your own future that you will have to live in, in somewhat vicariously through everything. And I think that's the most important message to remember.
Oh, for sure. And so a couple of things that popped out to me there where you were talking. One is sort of been a through line on this so far on this podcast, is that perfect storm of creativity when there are 2 or 3 or 4 or more elements of a combined piece of artwork, where those individual pieces are firing so hard and so intensely and doing such an effective job that it just elevates everything around it. And if you get a few of those things kind of harmonizing, like in the Cloud Atlas, those performances from the actors and the narrative and the music, when those things are all firing together, each one elevates the next, and you get this kind of like magic that happens, which is just so impressive and compelling to witness as an audience member. And the other thing, which I think it feeds nicely into your next point, you sort of started to explore the idea of reincarnation there. And it seemed like an important component in your outlook, your life. And point 4 I've got here, instant spiritual connections. Is there any connective tissue there?
Yeah, definitely some. So, it could be anything to do with sometimes there are people who I've met, or that maybe other people have met, in your life where you feel like, oh wow, I really feel like I've known this person my whole life. And maybe you have in some other life, who knows. But even if you hadn't, and even if you have no sort of history or track record with this person, you can meet people and like instantly be like, whoa, I feel like I know you and we have so much to talk about. You just open the door and everything's right there. I've met a ton of friends that way, just people in my life that I just walked into something and it was already there. I didn't have to like spend time building it. The connection was so pure and so present, whether that's like musical partners, romantic partners, friends, friendships that have lasted forever. That part has been huge for me in my life. And I trust that when I meet someone, when that happens, it tells me that that's a very special relationship. It's a very special thing. Like when you meet someone you can talk to for days, you'll never get bored of them. You'll never run out of things to say. You're always like very happy in each other's company. And you could be there for like, honestly, days on end and have a 24-hour conversation straight.
Is that, in your mind, is that exclusive to just people? Do you feel like you've ever experienced that instant spiritual connection to a piece of art or a song, or in
a different way? Yeah, I mean, I've definitely felt connection to other things like that where you see it and you're like, oh my God, that's incredible. That's wow. But for this particular thing, I really meant it as people, because I recalled certain instances where for example, like I remember I've got a friend in LA named Alex, and I remember meeting him and just instantly we were like best friends, and we were on this music convention together, and we spent the whole week. There were other people who also became great friends of mine, but with him it was something really special. Like we opened the door and it was just all there. The friendship was like forever, and doesn't matter how long it goes by that I don't see him. Obviously we live very far away, etc. But even if I see him twice in a decade, like as soon as we get on conversation or as soon as we see each other, it's all right there, like as if no time has passed. Or another friend of mine, Joy, who I met in America as well. And like, just very special. You're in it immediately. The conversation is so exhilarating, amazing, wild. You want to tell each other everything. There's not enough time in the galaxy to catch up and to say all the things you want to say to this person, but you feel like you want to try anyway.
I feel like you would want to try. I can easily read that with you.
I mean, both parties do. That's what makes it so great, because it's so reciprocal. Like it wouldn't work if it wouldn't be that kind of blowout connection if it's just one-sided. It would have to be that both of you are like, blah, 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 really excited and fired up.
And that comes back to that sort of harmonizing thing again, like
No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, I think
it's definitely true.
Just speaks to that magic, that sort of undeniable, visceral, unexplainable magic that happens sometimes certainly between people. And also, when I asked you before about, is it exclusively about people? Is it about art? Is it about something else? I think actually, even if it was, it probably always leads back to a person. Hey.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because a person there, that's really true. That's a good point. Because, there's always going to be that person who made that thing. But having said that, I have seen this, and I will speak to a different point now, that you have the artist, and then you have, the artist's creation, and then you have the artist as a person, as who they are in their lives. And I have met people who, or have seen it or whatever, that I respect and admire and relate to their art so much. But they're personally them. I don't really rate them, or I have a lot to say about how they conduct themselves, or I disagree with them. And that's totally fine. I do separate that out a little bit. Sometimes those things really are married quite well to one another, and sometimes they're totally separate, and you do have to separate them out a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Separating the art from the artist. Yeah, it's necessary sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because especially in this climate, if you want to look at, how art is and how politics is and whatever, like just because I disagree with someone on a lot of the things that they might feel like socially or politically or whatever, it doesn't mean that I stop respecting their art, their ability, their skill, being moved by it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I still think they're fantastic artists. Like Jennifer Aniston, I disagree vehemently with most of the things that she says. She's still a great actress. She made The Morning Show with Reese Witherspoon, and I thought that was one of the best shows that I've seen in 2020. It was such a powerful show. It was incredible. It was on Apple TV, and it was just incredible. Honestly, a stunning piece of TV that's very separate and very different to what I normally like and what I normally watch. But I could definitely separate out and be like, this is a phenomenal actress. She deserves every accolade that she received for this particular role. I don't like her and I disagree with her on a lot of things, but it didn't impede or stop me from enjoying the shit out of the art that she makes and that she produced. Like, incredible.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's necessary sometimes to separate the art from the artist. And when you are sort of sparked by a piece of work, a song, a movie, a book, or whatever it might be, and it leads you back to a person, even if when you arrive at that person, you fundamentally disagree with how they present their ideas, or, their approach to life in general, or some of the mistakes they've made, or some of the ways they've vocalized their opinions, etc., that connection still exists. And it may not be admiration, but I still think if I was in a room with that person, even if they were saying something that I disagreed with, I think they would still find a way to ignite me.
Maybe.
Even if it led to an argument, which I find interesting. And it comes back to that point you made before about how all of this is perhaps a language. Maybe some of us can speak it more fluently or enjoy it or exploit it more freely than others.
Yeah. Plus, I don't mind an argument. You know what I mean? Like, some people dread it as if it's the worst thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
You know, I say, all right, bring it on. Let's argue.
Yeah.
Cool. Something will come out of it, and we'll come out, both of us, more reinforced. And I'm not afraid to having a confrontational conversation. That's partly because of my personality and also how I was raised and also my heritage, like, and how things are in Israel, you know. So for people who know, a lot of Israelis were quite like combative, like assertive, like people. I'm fully aware that it's true. And certainly compared with the English sort of,
oh, for sure.
You know, wavelength, which is a bit more apologetic, a bit more, I'm so sorry. Is it quite possible that I can squeeze past? Do you mind? And I'm like, what? Just tell me to move, and I'll move. Why do you need a whole sentence? You need a whole setup, a preamble to this. Like, can you move? All right. Yeah. And let's just keep things simple, you know.
This country, this country is not set up for you, is it? It's just not. Like, everything you're saying is so true, and part of me even wants to apologize. But having said
that, I admire it. No, don't apologize. Don't do the English thing, because I moved here. I chose to move here. I'm not one of those people who like move to some country and then just like trash talk it. I love the UK. I love the British culture. I love British people, absolutely, and I love British heritage and the British music. That whole, you know, there's something so specifically great, and like really using the full term of the word great here. And I find like there's incredible things about the British Empire. Absolutely. Directness is not one of them. And certainly no one has ever accused you guys of being direct. And I think that there is a balance to be had, because with Israelis, that is one of my pet peeves as well, where I'm like, you don't have to be so blunt that you're actually hurting the other person with your like, ugh, like you don't have to, not every single, you know, little tiny point of debate or whatever has to be like, you know, let's make you bleed. It can be, there's a nice point in the middle where we both are direct enough, but not offensive, you know, so that we can get on with having a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely fallen out of love with English culture a few times in my life. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think everything you just described is true, and what that means is for things like, I don't think we understand dancing entirely, English people, or, you know, if you say the word carnival, you know, and then you feel that with English people, it just becomes something completely different.
Getting hammered.
Right. Yeah. It's a different kind of thing, where if there was a party and there's someone from every country in the world at this party, the English person would be the last person to dance. They'd be standing in sort of at the bar, sort of shyly, kind of reserved and apologetic, as you say. And like I said, I've had a complex relationship with English culture myself. The other thing as well, we just got on that point, English culture. I'm sort of, as an English person, I think our food is a little bit embarrassing as well. Like, we don't have much food culture, right? So you could bit. You're right. Where's our culture? Where's our food culture?
Your food's gotten better.
Right.
Food's gotten so much better. It's made leaps and bounds since that. Yeah, I don't want to put down the British culture, honestly, but because honestly, my favorite meal in the world, also, maybe you'll find this hilarious. I love Israeli food. I love Mediterranean and Middle Eastern food and all these types of, like, they speak volumes to me, and I come from a family of a restaurant and chefs and stuff. But one of my favorite meals in the world is a Sunday roast. I love a Sunday roast. Love it with capital letters. Oh, it's so good. It's very specific.
Yeah,
done just right, but it's the touch of greatness.
Are you a foodie yourself? Are you much of a chef?
I'm not a chef. No, I'm okay. I cook for myself, and I eat quite healthy. So a lot of my meals, I make for myself. But it's not I come from a family of like chefs. My sister's a chef. My mom's a chef. They're very big foodies. They know their way about food. They know so much about it. You know what I mean? Like, they know exactly what to make, how to make it. They'll very routinely throw dinner parties for 15 plus people that are like, bam, drop of the hat. Like, okay, who's coming for dinner today? Yeah, right. And then within an hour, you've got like, bam, 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 bam. If I had to set up a meal for 15 people, I'd start cooking next week. You know, like I wouldn't even know where to start. But I'm okay. Like, I do well because I'm used to like good food and cooking quite healthy. And whatnot, but I'm not as good as my sister.
Yeah, that's cool. And when they're hosting these dinner parties, have you ever seen performance in their food? Is it about love? Is it about presentation?
Yeah, everything. It's about presentation, about love. It's about making it for the other people. Like, they know. Like, my mom would be, oh, I knew that such and such was coming. I've made him his favorite, blah. Like, it's a way to express love and caring. And certainly, like, again, this is a Jewish / Israeli culture where you'd always have your big meal on Friday night. So Friday night dinner is an institution. Absolutely. Like your Sunday roast, Sunday roast, lunchtime, it's a thing. So for us, like the Friday night dinner, that's when the whole family gets together and, you sit down through a whole thing. And there was a guy, American friend of mine, who came in and had dinner with us on one of those Fridays. And he said, oh my God, your Friday night dinner every single Friday is like our Thanksgiving meal. This is like the Super Bowl of all meat. Like, you have that every single Friday. And I'm like, yeah. And just like, this is incredible, because the variety, the diversity, how different all the things are all the time, like how creative they are, just the sheer volume of food. I mean, my mom could easily feed 3 times the people that are actually sat at the table,
Wow. Is there ever music at dinner? It's probably mostly...
Do you know what? Not really, because there's such a ruckus and like lots of people.
I was gonna say
normally that it's too loud. Honestly, so normally there's no music. Maybe after, but not during.
Okay, cool. All right then. Well, moving on to your final point on the list here, number 5.
Yeah,
kind of a cool one. I'm interested to see how you explain it. So, as simple as when shit just comes together.
Yeah,
so talk me through it. What's a good example of that?
When you have a day where you didn't plan things out, you didn't just... I'm going to give you the simplest example. This is something that happened the other day. My sister was visiting me from out of country, and this is the chef. She actually baked a lot of food for me and made a lot of stuff. And we went to London, and we had a whole weekend of a lot of faffing about. We had a friend's birthday, and she made her this huge, very fancy cake that we brought over there. There were a lot of logistics things, and to people who have been in England, they know there's been a storm, a big, like, just really shit weather and big storm and stuff. And that caused a lot of logistical issues throughout the weekend and throughout the whole week, really. So it was a lot of things that didn't quite work out. Like, we had a great time and everything, but there were a lot of kind of issues and hindrances. So on Monday, we were planning that we spent the day in London, which we knew we were going to, and then things just kind of very naturally flowed from one thing to another. It's like, oh, should we go over here? Oh, what's this? Oh, I've been looking for a blah blah. Oh, okay, cool. And then we went on to this thing, and then we were meant to meet a very good friend of mine. Shout out to Cassidy Jansen, who's one of the best singers I've ever met in my life. She's a good friend of mine, and she's in a musical called And Juliet. She's one of the starring roles, and she just won an Olivier Award for it. Thank you very much. She's phenomenal. So I love her. We haven't seen each other in a couple of weeks or something, and she was like, oh my God, hon, you're in town, let's meet up, and your sister's here, blah blah. And we were like excited about it. And we walked past this place. We were looking for a coffee shop. Now, coffee shops in England are notoriously like just they always close so early, and I don't know why. It's because you guys like to drink, and like so all the coffee shops close at 5, and then people just like go to the pub. But in Israel, the coffee shops are open till like forever. They're open 24/7. So we were looking for a coffee shop. We were walking around, and it's like 4:30. It's a very dicey time to be searching for that. So we walked past this place, and it's beautiful, stunning Italian restaurant, so beautifully designed. It looks very romantic, but like cool, but it had this vibe to it, and it was just such a cool place. And we're like, this place is fucking epic. Like, it's just stunning. And then we kept walking and trying to find other places and blah, blah. And we're like, no, and I was like, this is the place we're going to sit here. We're not particularly hungry even, mind you, but we're just like, we're going to sit there. Do you happen to have room? Yeah, they have room. Okay, great. Can we sit here? Yeah, absolutely. You can do it for an hour and a half. Great. And then shit just worked out. When we sat there and we ordered some stuff off the menu, we were just really winging it. We're like, boom, boom, boom. We ordered the best dishes, and they were huge and amazing, and they came in a really extravagant way of like serving them, and like we sat there and had the best conversation, and it all came together and worked out and was fantastic. And this is just like the tiniest and most like whatever ridiculous example for something when shit just works out, when you have a day that's really cool with people and that you love, and the stars just align, and you have the best sort of like day or 2 hours or whatever, or show, whatever. So that's what I mean by it. I find it incredibly inspiring, and just like more reasons worth of living, because I'll explain this concept to you. Sometimes the semantics and the technicalities of life and what it is to live it are just so encumbered. Like you just so, it's so heavy. And you're like, gotta take the thing, and I've got to, all the technical activities are just so much. And if you don't get enough enjoyment and actual pure joy out of them, it just like becomes, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing on this earth even? And then when sometimes shit just works out and you meet a really cool person and the night just kind of takes its own life and your favorite song is playing and now you're going to this other place that's really cool and now you're like having this beautiful meal and now you're meeting and now you're going to see, and they've taken you to see a gig that's like turned out to be one of your favorite like that kind of like shit just works out on a very like mundane seeming like level, but it makes all the difference.
And in terms of inspiration, is that something that you are able to plug back into your work?
It was a good question. I'll give you a lot of credit for that because it's true. Like 5 things that inspire you. I thought, yeah, that's a really good question. And I filled out really quickly. I just went like boom, 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 boom. And those are the first things that came to my mind. I didn't think about it too much. I didn't overthink it, It's probably not something I aim for in my art, but like also with songs, when shit just works out, I suppose that is the way that relates to that, because I have had that experience. I have had songs where just like boom, like the melody just landed on me from nowhere, and I knew that was, or like a certain lyric, and like it just all came together very quickly, boom, 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 and it just worked out. And I was like, yeah, this is right, okay, yes,
It's so clear to me. Like there's so many similarities in my approach to art, and some of the things that you've highlighted as being rewarding and useful and inspiring to you. A couple of things you've said. One was everything you do vibrates, which I think I'll take with me. Thank you for that one. The other one, the other one I really liked. You said music is the highest form of communication. And you sort of adjusted that to maybe it's art is the highest form, but to say that music is the highest form of communication, that feels like the truth to me. I don't know how you could promote communication beyond music or art, thinking about it. And like I say, I suppose it's on all of us artists in the responsibility of what we're doing to deliver it effectively, and it's everyone else's responsibility maybe to be open to receiving it in the way it was intended. Maybe, not sure.
I think so. I think there is a level of responsibility for anyone, any human beings on this planet, like how you receive communication and how you deliver it out. It is your responsibility. And what you said earlier, like, yeah, it's your responsibility maybe as an artist to be a certain thing, to be inspiring, or to be, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it is a responsibility or a duty that we have as artists to communicate, to put our truth out there, because I know how contributed I was by other artists that I've seen, especially with music and movies and writings and books, like things like that. I know how incredibly potent it was for me, certainly in my sort of forming years, teenager, all that, to discover all these things. It was a universe, and so I think if I can do that for someone else, it's my responsibility, my duty to do so. It's like a very pure thing.
Okay then, and as we're sort of wrapping this up, understanding this list, coming into a creative space armed with this list or a version of it, how do you turn this list into gold? How do you plug it into your productivity? Is there an answer to that? I don't know.
Let me think about that. I suppose trying to get it out there to the people is the hardest part, because like I said, I'm a musician, I'm an artist. I sit down and I write things or I perform them or whatever, and doing the rest of the stuff that entails like a business, which is like promotion and marketing and newsletters and posts and blah, blah, like, all this other stuff is hard work that's not as inspiring for me to do. And until you get big enough to like have other people who help you with that stuff, it still comes down to you. It still all boils down to you. But if you're more successful and rich and famous and all that, you've got all the wherewithal and you've got other people on your team working with you on that. I think it's easier, but I definitely try to be the best version of myself and to promote myself to other people and set a good example of that. Do you know what I mean? And like, I try and really put my put my money where my mouth is. Not that I have any money because I'm a freelance artist, but like I try to just really walk the line and set a good example and make the kind of music that I want in the world, make the kind of music that I want to see. If I do vocal coaching, do the kind of thing that how I would have liked to be taught, and help people and shape them in a way that I think is what the world needs more of. Do you know what I mean? Or if it's, sometimes I'll do voiceover work. So something that communicates and is real enough that I would want to listen to. That's kind of how I try and perceive it. That's how I go about it.
Yeah, received. And to hear you say, because you're a freelance artist, the money isn't there, or you made a comment along those lines, but just to use a cliche, I mean, to hear you describe...
a starving artist.
Right. But maybe from a certain point of view, one of the richest people on earth, if you have that perspective, if success is measured in empathy.
Maybe.
But yeah,
I like that.
Okay, good. All right. So I just want to thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. You've certainly inspired me. Where can people find your
lovely
stuff? Like, if people want to know more about you, like, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, which is CaliRivlin.com. So if Cali, C-A-L-I, Rivlin, R-I-V-L-I-N. They just do that, they can find me on my website, on my Instagram, on Facebook, all the rest of it. And I'll update there what I do, different recordings. I have a whole bunch of new music that I'm getting ready to record now, actually.
Wow.
And I'm gathering all the funding for it. It's quite an exciting thing that I'm very, very, very much looking forward to.
Amazing. That sounds incredible.
Yeah,
okay. So it sounds like you're working on an awful lot at the moment that's about to happen.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Yeah, new music.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I haven't recorded proper new music in a long time.
Oh, yeah? Is it an
Since
album?
My album, yeah.
Okay.
So I recorded an album previously, and now I'm recording an EP. I'm getting ready to record an EP, which is shorter than an album, but very exciting.
Okay. And it's complete? You're ready to go with it?
Almost. I'm just waiting for some of the funding because I have a very generous label who said that they might support some of it. If people want to support my recording process, they definitely can. If you go on my website, you'll see some stuff and you can get in touch with me. But basically, I am, again, it's always a bit of a struggle with the money thing because you always have to figure out, like, how do I finance this? Because you want the quality to be good, and that means that you have to put some money into it, which I'm happy to do. But, like, you also, by that same token, you want people to pay you properly. Sometimes people are like, oh, yeah, come do a gig, and then we'll pay you with pizza and 50 pounds. And I'm like, what am I going to do with a pizza and 50 quid? You're joking. Like, this is a job. This is work, Like, I'm not going to show up at your bar and be like, I'm going to sample all these different things. I'm going to do it for free. And then if it's good, then I'll come back here and then I'll pay you. Like, what?
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, listen, good luck with it. I'd love to support the work and the album. I can't wait to hear it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
No, it's been
an
absolute pleasure.
Great questions.
I'd love to have you back. I'd be thrilled to have you back. Maybe when this album is available for the audience to listen to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute joy and a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to the MAKEthrough.studio podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring you episode 4 with Cali Rivlin. As she mentioned in the episode, you can go to CaliRivlin.com, get her back, support what she's doing, find her on socials. And in the meantime, please do like, share, follow, comment, subscribe, request alerts, leave us a nice review. It really does mean a lot. If you'd like to appear on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. You can go to MAKEthrough.studio, click on contact, fill out the form there, leave us some details, and we'll come back to you to figure out an episode. On the next episode of the MAKEthrough.studio podcast, we've got a science communicator, very excited to explore the wonderful world of science communication with a good friend of mine. So please do come back next time. And I guess that's it. So thank you once again for listening. Good luck and go well.